All right. Can you start by telling me your name and where you're from?
Yes, my name is Keena Day, and I am from Detroit, Michigan. I currently live in Denver, Colorado.
How did growing up in Detroit impact who you are today? I see that you're an entrepreneur and you have a big impact in the community. How do you think growing up in Detroit impacted who you are today?
So I have my Detroit versus everybody shirt on right now, by the way. Um, Detroit has just really informed the person that I am. I love my hometown. My entire family still lives there. If it wasn't for COVID, I usually am there during this time of year. But Detroit is just really impacted my understanding of this world, how I use my talent, how I understand that I have to give back to my community. Like my hometown has just been very integral to that for me. Detroit, at the time that I was growing up there, was almost about 90% Black. I grew up there in the 80s and 90s, and I left and went to a HBCU in 1999. But from the 80s and 90s, like it was deeply, deeply, deeply Black. And it was never just treated as, my Blackness wasn't treated as a curse or anything that was going to handicap me, but instead something that I should embrace as excellence. And so everything that we did in Detroit, all of the youth programs that my mother put me in, and there were plenty of them, all focused on me becoming a Black woman who understood the beauty of my culture, but also the importance of making sure I did what I needed to do to make something out of myself so that I can give back to my community. And I mean, that just was impressed upon me with all of my teachers. Most of my teachers were Black. I can count on my hands how many non-Black teachers I had growing up, which continues to mean a lot to me, especially as I meet more and more people here in Denver and across the country where folks are like, Keena, like I literally only had, two Black teachers, or I didn't get my first Black teacher till I got to college. Like people experienced that, and that wasn't my experience, and so Detroit introduced me to the rich culture of our country, of our city, within this country. So being able to go to where Malcolm X used to speak in Detroit, or the Tuskegee Airmen come into my classroom and talking to me about how important it was for me to, look into being a pilot and, that type of stuff. Like, excellence in the history of our people is just so just in my face all the time in Detroit. So it just really impacted me. HBCUs used to come to Detroit quite a bit to play different football games or different classics and stuff like that. So I was able to see the richness of HBCU culture in my city. And it's just a place about hustlers, people understanding like how to get money and how to take 15 cents and turn that into an entrepreneurship. You know what I'm saying? And so I definitely have learned the hustle spirit, being as a person from Detroit. So I'm just very proud to be from my city. I love my city. I go back quite often. Most of my closest friends throughout my life are from Detroit. And so, it's just a special place, and it will always definitely be what I consider a huge part of the person I've become today.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like it was really good to grow up around. I did a little bit of research on you and what you do, which is why I did reach out to you. But I wanted to see if you could kind of talk about that a little bit for people that may watch this video, just to know what it is that you do and the impact that you have on the community.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for asking that. So, I live within what I believe to be my purpose in life. And everything that I do, including the work that I do in, as a career, is connected to that and what I believe my purpose is. And so I believe that my purpose in life is to help make literacy accessible to all people. I work during my day job as a literacy administrator in a school district, DSST Public Schools here, which is a part of the Denver Public Schools system, but it's a STEM charter system. And so we have a very, very large group of schools that I work with. So I have both middle school and high school. I work with grades 6 through 12. And I manage a team of literacy coaches who support principals, assistant principals, teachers to implement, curriculum. I try to, one, help to build teachers and principals' capacity to provide instructional practices that actually give students the opportunity to learn how to read successfully. I try my best to bring in culturally relevant pieces and culturally relevant strategies into the schools to be able to make sure that our kids are getting the top literacy instruction that they can receive. And that is something that is super, super important to me because, like I said, I believe it's my life's work. And I go into so many school districts where people don't really have a plan of action as to how we can teach our Black children and our brown children to be literate and to go to college prepared, go to college as critical thinkers, and to be viewed as intellectuals. And so I go into school districts to change that mindset and that mentality in the school district. And it is something that is very challenging. It is hard to do, especially when you're in white spaces where you are one of very few Black people. I'm the only Black person in the instructional space. And so it could be a little challenging sometimes, but it is rewarding work. It is so much fun. I really enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy the problem solving that I get to do. I like the innovation that I get to bring into schools. And it just really means a lot to me. And I just really am very honored that and feel very blessed that I have been able to impact, how students learn. But we also know that it doesn't stop with how our students learn, but as adults, what people are able to also accomplish in this life. And if you can't read, or if you're functionally illiterate, which many, many adults are, that will also impact the amount of wealth that they can attain. And so with that being said, I also do a lot of community education for adults to not only teach them the history of, who they are as Black people or culturally relevant information about being Black. I also try to teach people how culture and race intersects with the idea of wealth and politics. And so I am the executive director for an organization I founded called Now, Not on Our Watch, where I give, and a lot of people who are connected to our organization try to give community education to teach people this information. Sometimes, if I have to, I'll teach parents how to support their kids in homeschooling or IEPs or, those types of things. But I try to give community education to people so that they can, improve access. Finally, I am also a writer. So I do get the opportunity. I've written 2 books, one called Aphrodisiacs, the other one called The Colors of My Boudoir. Both are very, very heavily centered on Black women and also Black love and how love is a form of Black empowerment. So I do get the opportunity to perform poetry. I get the opportunity to speak on, different panels or with radio stations and podcasts, just to get that information out and just to really talk about what we have to do as a culture to really escape these 400 years of oppression and different things that we can do as individuals to kind of, move away from that. And so that's how my life kind of has worked out and panned out. And all of it kind of connects together. It's all about education for me. It's all about making sure that Black people understand and appreciate the richness of our culture and you know, how just really extraordinary we are as a people. And I just really try to put that out as much as I can. And I am a member of a very, very active member of my community. I'm a member of 9 organizations here in Denver, including CBWPA, which I am a board member. That stands for Colorado Black Women for Political Action. So I do a lot of work in the political sphere. I am also a member of several different organizations for writers and poets. And so we try to do like youth poetry and stuff like that. So I try to be a part of those conversations. And finally, I do a lot of engagement work with Black organizations such as NAACP here, Urban League, and just try to be in the know of the different things that we have going on in my community. I really try to stay connected as much as possible. So that's pretty much what I do. I mean, it's hard to like put it in a sentence or whatever because everything kind of, you know, comes together. But I live a very, very active life, and I just enjoy being able to learn from other people and connect to people across this country through my organization now to educate and make sure we get to the next level as a race.
When did you first realize that that would be your passion, like working in education? When did you first realize that?
You know, how I got to education was pretty interesting, especially on this path that I'm in. I became a mother at 18 years old. So as young as I look, I have a son who is 19 years old. Me and my husband had him while we were in college, and we did attend a HBCU. So it was very far from my home, and so we didn't have family to help us. You know, the two of us just kind of worked together to raise our son, and so he is a sophomore in college at this point. But whew, it was a long 18 years to get him there. But when I was in college, I was an English major and was planning to be a writer. But then I had this beautiful baby my sophomore year and realized like, okay, girl, you are not going to be able to just sit and figure out what you're doing with your life and what you're going to do with an English degree. You need to make sure that English degree is going to pay the bills like as soon as you graduate. And so teaching was obviously the easiest thing for me to do. So I did that. And I started to student teach, honey. I student taught in middle school and high school. And during that student teaching time, I'm going in there as a teacher, like as a person that's ready to be a teacher, like, okay, I learned about this book. I want to teach this book. I want to teach this. And then I got to that classroom and so many children could not read. I mean, literally just like would call the words out, but not understand what that book was saying. Couldn't really interact with it because they didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? Just so many things that I just wasn't taught in my bachelor's degree. I just did not learn, like, if a kid couldn't read, what I needed to do. You know what I'm saying? They just don't teach that to you, and I didn't know. And so I immediately graduated with my bachelor's in English and got my educational credentials. And I'm talking about the next week, I enrolled in my master's and got my my master's degree also in English, but with a focus in linguistics and reading, becoming a reading specialist. So I did my first year teaching while I was a master's student, in charge of my own classroom. And I had a group of 6th graders who to this day mean the world to me. And this was at least 18, 19 years ago, I was their teacher. But I just really spent that time to hone and learn and understand like how you get kids to the next level. And so I learned how to treat dyslexia. I learned how to treat autism. I learned how to treat even students who had stutters. Like I learned how to, you know, fix that for people. And when kids didn't understand what they read, like I learned how to break that information down for folks. Like that just meant so much to me because I was able to help somebody, you know what I mean? And so that has just become what I believe I'm supposed to do, that I have done the work to really educate myself constantly in class, constantly learning, constantly in workshops, constantly, you know, attending college classes. I'm a doctoral student as we speak. Like I'm constantly trying to learn because I really believe this is what I'm supposed to do. I get so much joy from it. I recognize that that's a part of my talent and that is God-given. And unless you use your talents to exalt him, at the end of the day, like, you're kind of wasting that blessing. And so I really find that as me, just sharing my my abilities with people so that we can just all get to the next level. And so many schools just don't know how to serve our children. And I just feel like since I've done the work to learn, I'm definitely going to do the work to share it. So I guess that's kind of how it came to me. I'm a very spiritual person, and I take that very seriously. And I just believe that the more that I can put into the earth, I reap out of the earth.
Do you feel as if having Black teachers growing up was beneficial to you and seeing that you could become that role?
Yes. Even when I didn't even think about being a teacher, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just wanted to be like those folks. You know what I'm saying? You had these teachers who come to school and they are well spoken and well dressed and, in this fraternity and that sorority, you know what I'm saying? They are talented. They do things outside of the school. I had plenty of teachers who were actors at night and teaching us during the day. Or I had another professor a teacher in high school. He was a jazz musician and he gigged at night and he taught us how to gig. And so I became a jazz trombonist and was able to gig and make extra money in high school. Like, it was just something that they really taught us, which was to make money, to get money, make sure you build this money so that you can build wealth for your family, and that was just always impressed upon me as a child. And I also had another teacher, Dr. Jabulani, who was my STEM teacher when I was in 8th grade, and his father was a Tuskegee Airman. And they made so many opportunities for us. We were able to go into flight simulators. We were able to learn like the insides of engines. Like, they just opened up my world. And I just believe that that's what I needed to do as a classroom teacher, making sure that my students can see from outside of their neighborhood or from outside of their city and realize that there is a whole world out there for you to conquer. And that's what I was taught by my teachers, is to be the best that you can be, give back to your community, always represent yourself to the best of your ability, leave a good impression, and to just conquer the world. And so, I just took all of those different things that I learned from my teachers and definitely made it a part of my craft when I was a teacher.
As your role in the education system, how do you think that we, as like people that are like kind of like not within it as much, can advocate and continue to advocate for a better school system?
Ooh, child. The main thing that I can tell people about advocacy is that, we got to be a little bit more involved with what's happening in the political sphere. A lot of people just really don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? Especially where school is concerned. Sometimes teachers reach out to parents and make connections with families. I've seen teachers of color do that very exceptionally well. I've seen some white teachers do it well. I've seen some not do it so well. And to be honest, like in education, about 80% of educators in America are white. And so, I think that there are some bridges that need to be built there. But if folks aren't really, especially parents, aren't necessarily like in the know of what is the day-to-day in their classrooms, what their students are experiencing in classrooms, I think that's the number one thing that you have to advocate for. You have to know what assignments your kids are doing. You have to know if that teacher is actually teaching your child. Are you seeing growth? Is this child getting smarter as they go? If they're not, what you doing about it? Are you asking questions? You know what I'm saying? And just not being afraid to ask for support. There are so many support organizations for parents, for, you know what I'm saying, people to understand who are raising children and, you know, like guardians or grandparents, whatever. There's so many supports, community supports that people just don't even know about. And so I would just ask people, like, if you're trying to be an advocate, definitely tap into that school. If you're not a member of that PTO, or they don't have a PTO, start one. And you don't have to have a kid that attend that school. You know what I'm saying? But we want to make sure that our schools are receiving all the money they need to receive, that they're getting all the supports that they need. Like, you can easily just be a part of a PTO or start a PTO to get that going for a school. I don't know any principal who would tell you that, no, you can't do that. Like, everybody wants those support systems, you know. I would also ask people to really tune into the school board. Like, so many things come from the school board, and when we force them to do certain things, then things get done. You know what I mean? Like, if we don't like the curriculum, we think it's too whitewashed, then a whole lot of parents can kind of just go down to the school board and make that, you know, demand clear. And we just don't engage and use our voices to demand people to do stuff. They're elected to do things for us. And those schools exist so that we can do, you know, so that we can provide, you know, an education to children. So, you know, but a lot of that is not happening everywhere. We already know that we're not, you know, funding schools the way that we need to. We are not pressuring people in our local councils, or even at the federal level. We're just not pushing them to invest in education like we need them to. And so that is where advocates need to get involved so that we can get what our kids deserve. And so if that's you putting a PTO together, if that's you going to the school board meetings or tuning into the school board meetings, if that's you being a person that offers a service, such as, say, karate, or say, such as something you do in the community, maybe you perform poetry or, you know, modern dance, offer it to the school and see what you can do to kind of support a child. Because if I did not have community members coming into my school, then I would not have ever been able to tap into a lot of the opportunities that I ended up receiving. But it was literally because I had someone who had a Girl Scout troop that came into my school, or somebody who was offering acting classes came to my music class and told us, and my mom was like, oh yeah, girl, you doing that? We signed you up today. You know, like, it was a lot of community people coming into the schools and offering those services that allowed me to know what was, you know, what I needed to do. And I was able to find out about myself because of that. So I would just say, like, there's a lot of different ways people can lean into the schools. And so I would just say, definitely do it, because we need it. Our schools need that support.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what led you to decide to initially study English?
Oh, yes. It's pretty interesting. It's a very interesting story. So I am really a STEM girl at heart. Like I've already told you, I got into the Tuskegee Airmen. They started teaching us, like, about flight simulators and, like, what the inside of an airplane looks like and all of these, like, really cool things. We even got an opportunity to, like, get pilot's licenses and, you know, like, flying helicopters. Like, the Tuskegee Airmen, like, made that available to my class. And, you know, I loved it. Also in Detroit, there was a group called DAPSEP, which was an engineering STEM thing for middle schoolers. And so my mama enrolled me in that. My mama enrolled me pretty much in everything that was free. She enrolled me in all of it. So I grew up loving STEM. I went to Cass Technical High School, where in that high school, I was able to choose a major. And so my major was auto mechanic, I think it was called, and mechanical auto something, but it was basically auto mechanics. Basically, it was something, it had some kind of fancy name, so I didn't feel like I was going to be a mechanic. But we got the opportunity to, like, work on cars and, you know, all that stuff while I was in high school. And so that really meant a lot to me. And so when I left home, I went to college thinking I was going to become a power plant engineer, which was a person who worked on planes. And I did all of that work. I loved, getting involved with it. I went to a summer program going into college to study it, but I could not pass physics at all. And it made me wonder, because I had this physics teacher in high school that didn't really teach me anything. And you know what I'm saying? They just, you copy stuff from the textbook, whatever, they give you an A. That was my experience. And I didn't know at the time that I wasn't going to be an engineer if I couldn't pass that class. And so I tried twice, I failed twice. And I just had to, tell myself like, okay, girl, so it don't look like you're going to do that. So what can you do with your life? And I really enjoy writing poetry. I really, really enjoy, I'm not that avid of a reader. I don't, I read a lot of like nonfiction, but I love Black literature. And Black literature just turned me on my freshman year, where I was like, I want to write a book like that too. So that's why I kind of stepped into English. And I've been able to do journalist work where I've written for Black newspapers and Black magazines. And you know what I'm saying? I've also had the opportunity, like I said, because I've put books out, to, perform poetry and, just talk about writing with students and things like that. And I've also taught at the collegiate level. I've taught freshman composition courses as well. So it was really just because I wanted to be a writer, after I realized I wasn't going to be an engineer. And that's how I ended up getting into English. And it was really smart for me to do that, because I got my master's in English as well. And you get to take really specific text. And so I got to study in the library of Fisk University. And I don't know how much you know about Fisk University, but W.E.B. Du Bois went there. A lot of Black intellectuals went there. But two of my favorite writers, one is Arna Bontemps, who is Langston Hughes' best friend in the Harlem Renaissance, and then Robert Hayden, who is a native of Detroit. Both of them were the librarians at one point of Fisk University, and was able to curate all of this Black literature that is specific to Fisk. And so I was able to spend like a whole semester just up in there, you know what I'm saying, reading all that rich literature. And so I was introduced to not only Zora Neale Hurston, but just also like Georgia Douglas Johnson, and just so many women who just had these beautiful texts, J. California Cooper, Gloria Naylor. And I just wanted to like be like them and write something important like that. So, English has just definitely been like the forefront of a lot of the things that I did. And I'm really glad that I ended up moving to English.
Can you talk to me about the Black newspapers and magazines that you worked at and how you had got into them?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I did my first book, I was working with a publicist who was in Detroit. And she told me, she was like, Keena, I mean, when you put a book out and you start to do the marketing work, like people are going to want to see things from you on a regular basis. So you need to really think about seeing if you can get on at a newspaper or at a podcast or something, so that you can, really push up your, how popular you're starting to get with this work. And it's a little bit of a push to be able to get there. But I'll tell you what, once you get connected to media, you just get connected to so many people. And so I understood exactly what she meant by that. So I just took a chance. I reached out to several outlets in Nashville. That's where I was living at the time. And the Black newspaper, the Tennessee Tribune, reached back. They liked it. And they said, hey, can you do a sample story? And I said, okay. Now I've never written a journal. I've never written an article in my life at this point. And so I was like, okay. But he coached me. He taught me exactly like what I needed to do. And so my very first story, they put me on, they call it a beat. And so like a beat is when you get all of these different stories for whatever the topic was. The beat they gave me was Metro Nashville Police Department, MNPD. So I got to follow like all the breaking news that was happening with the police department. The very first article I had to write, a police officer drowned and was saving a woman that ended up drowning. And I had to cover his funeral and everything. It was so heavy. Oh my gosh. And the funeral was just so large, and just all of these like makeshift monuments. It was so much. Oh my gosh, that was like the most busy week of my life. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks after his death, a police officer then killed a Black man, Jacquees Clemens, shot him in the back. And I had to cover that entire ordeal. It was so, oh my gosh. And so I was at NAACP meetings. I was at community meetings. I was at press releases. I was at press conferences. Like, I was at all of these different things, just following the police department beat. And so it was a wonderful experience. I will never, ever, ever discount that experience writing for a Black newspaper. I was able to interview the first Black woman who ran for mayor of Nashville. I was able to interview and do a lot of different red carpets for documentaries that came out. So one example was We Are Rising, which was the story of the HBCU, you know, how HBCUs grew, by Stanley Nelson, who was a major, you know, Black person who does documentaries. So I was able to interview him. Like, it was just a great, rewarding experience for me, just getting into it. And I mean, I even got to fly in a 1929 Ford airplane and had to cover that. Like, it was just such a great experience. And, you know, you get press passes and you get to go to all these different things. And sometimes they'll give you like more than one pass. And so I would always take my friends with me to these different events, and they were like, yes, like, you know, so we used to have fun. I used to love it. But now I write for a magazine here called My Black Colorado. And so I get the opportunity to interview people who are going to be featured in the magazine. And so it's super fun. I just love it because it just keeps me connected to the community.
That's really awesome. Can you talk to me about how everything you have done and participated in has helped enhance your leadership skills?
Absolutely. That's pretty interesting though. I just believe that when it comes to leadership, you know, I think that it's something that people really have to take time to learn how to do. You know, taking classes, you know, I was in a fellowship. I was in 2 fellowships that actually taught me more about leadership. One that took place at Yale University. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but they literally just taught us like how to be a good leader, how to, you know, not be someone that tells people what to do, you know what I'm saying, or give a bunch of directives or even micromanage, but learning how to use people's gifts and make them better through your work with them. You know what I'm saying? It is such a humbling experience, I would say. And just having the opportunity to, you know, learn how to watch, learn how to observe, really learn the surroundings, really learn the context of what's going on, really learn people, and really build relationships. And when you do those things, you know what I'm saying, like the rest of the leadership aspects come in handy. I think that all of the community work and all the things that I've done, though, that's really helped me with that is the sense of being organized and how important it is to build out systems, you know what I'm saying, of how people operate. And I'm still trying to learn as a leader to not perpetuate white supremacist structures. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of that permeates within businesses and business culture. And so I really try to push against that. I think that, you know, like learning to be organized and really learning the importance of systems, you know what I'm saying, like helps you to devise a plan of action to get projects done and to make people better than they were before that project started. And, you know, just trying to put myself in the right spaces with the right mentors and talking to the right people and really just taking things that you like from those people that you learn from and just building your own, you know, leadership persona. And that's pretty much been the story of like how I've developed as a leader. And I still have a long way to go because I'm still learning how to operate in white spaces as a Black woman and trying to operate in my full authentic self. but it can just be so hard sometimes, you know? So yeah, but I think that would be, those would be the main things that help me develop my leadership skills.
What tips do you have for young women of color that are aspiring to become professionals or even young entrepreneurs?
Yes. Tips for professionals. I think that the number one tip that I will always offer to Black women is to always know very deeply the information that you need to be successful. That means like studying when that information is not automatically given to you. That means giving yourself opportunities to learn from other people, to read, you know what I'm saying, to, excuse me, to do the research that you need to be as knowledgeable as you can. Because when you can operate in a space of knowledge, like it's so much that you can do versus a person who is not, you know, who don't have the same level of information that you have. So just be a sponge for information and just try to learn as much as you can. If you're trying to be a lawyer, then learn as much as you can. You know, especially if there's a lawyer who has a successful practice and that's what you want to do, then you want to start researching how that person did it and what steps that they took and getting you a mentor that can help you do that. And there's so many people who are willing to, you know, be that mentor. And I've just had so many mentors of so many races, so many genders, you know, at this point that, you know, I think that I'm just really a sponge of information. And so I would just always tell people to really know your content, really know what it is that you're trying to do. Study as much as possible. Even if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to open a business, you need to know as much as you can about that. If you're a cook, like you need to know everything about making sure that you can prepare that dish better than anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I just believe in knowledge, and I believe in making sure that if you're trying to put your best foot forward, then you have to be knowledgeable. I would also give the tip to get yourself an organization system for yourself. Learn how to really be organized. I have a lot of things that I have to do in my life. And if I wasn't organized, something would be, you know, missing. You know what I mean? So I keep my calendars very tight. I have to-do lists all the time that keeps me like posted on things that I need to do. I'm very proactive. I do not believe in being reactive at all. I try to make sure that I'm at least 2 or 3 weeks ahead of where I need to be just because I know how busy I am. I have a whole system within my, what do you call this thing, like calendar books? Like I have a whole system that breaks down the errands I have to make that week, the emails I have to send that week, the phone calls that I have to make that week, any grants or applications I have to fill out that week. Like I have all of that stuff worked out. So I have a strong organizational system. I would definitely tell people to, you know, have your organizational system. That's definitely going to help you get to the next level. And 2, you know, just be active in the community. I mean, the last one, I would say the third one, is just to be active in the community. There are so many organizations that you can join, especially Black organizations you can join, or organizations that's pushing towards wealth or pushing towards politics. But at the end of the day, you know, just getting the opportunity to, really be involved with your community. Find something that you like and really, you know what I'm saying, just lean into it so that you can give back. And I think that that's something that we all have to remember, is that, you know, there is no success without a successor. And so just making sure that you reach your arms out and your hands out to mentor somebody else or to give back to your community in any kind of way, like that's what we have to do to continue to build our community. So those would be some tips that I would give to people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about the two books that you wrote and what inspired you to create those books?
Yes. They are both for adults. I will say that I do like to write for adults. People always ask me, like, since you are in schools, do you write for students? I don't. I write for adults. But um, my first book was called The Colors of My Boudoir. Like I've told you before, I am a poet. And I really, really, really enjoy the use of metaphors and how you can use metaphors to say something kind of with a hidden message. And so The Colors of My Boudoir is a woman's journey through finding love and, what that was like. But the men are, she doesn't have a name. She's nameless. But the men in the stories are also nameless. They are defined and they are described as colors. And so you'll have ebony, you'll have chartreuse, you'll have canary yellow, you'll have crimson, gray, old gold. So these are all colors that she felt, defined who she was and the different colors of who she became based off her interactions with those men. And I just really believe in like beautifully written pieces of work. And so I studied The Great Gatsby quite a bit because I believe that that is one of the most beautifully written novels that I've ever read and ever taught. The language, the phrasing, the words that he used was just mind-blowing to me. And I also used Invisible Man for the same exact reason, except that it's with a Black, focus. And so I really do love both of those texts. But then there's this book called Some Soul to Keep by J. California Cooper, who is a Black woman. And so she had a collection of short stories about the journeys that Black women were taking in their relationships with men. And so I just was always enthralled by that book and said, I want to write something contemporary like that. I'm also a huge fan of the Golden Girls, believe it or not, from the 1980s, and watch it quite a bit. And my favorite character is Blanche Devereaux, who she was kind of saucy. She, had a lot of who she called gentleman callers. And so I wanted to write a Black story about a woman who lived her life like that. And so that's basically what I did. And it has just been such a beautiful, beautiful book and warmly received. And, I'm just really, really thankful. It took me 2.5 years to write it, but, I was really thankful for the support of my friends because they would read behind me. If I finished a chapter, they'd read behind me. Some of my students, I was teaching high school at the time, they read behind me and Miss Day, I love this chapter. Let's talk about it, So that used to be fun. But Colors of My Boudoir is just one of those books that I just deep to my heart. The second book was Aphrodisiacs. And I just wanted to present a collection of works that explore various relationships within Black love so that people can understand that if we can empower our families and build our families up, then it's kind of nothing they can do to us with oppression. You know what I'm saying? We beat them with wealth. We beat them with opportunity. We would beat them in so many different ways if we can fix our love ships. And that's not just like male, female, or, just any loving situation, but also like our families, how we interact with our mothers, how we interact with our fathers, how we interact with our cousins and family members. And so I just wanted people to really think about the importance of love and what we can do to empower ourselves through those bonds of love. And so I talked about it from a contemporary sense at first, but then I kind of had to delve into this idea of history, because the reason why our love ships are so challenged in this country is because of oppression, because of the things that they've done to us as a people, like, can you imagine somebody that you love being killed in your driveway of your home just because he wanted all Black people to be able to vote? That's the story of Medgar Evers and Merle Evers Williams, Or thinking about the experience of Coretta Scott King, you know what I'm saying? And how she had to raise her children by herself because someone decided that her husband was too radical or, you know, whatever, and decided to take his life. Like, children lost their father. A woman lost the love of her life. And so just think about like how emotionally straining that could be, especially for generations that were impacted by that type of loss. You know what I mean? And that is just the story of us as a people. And so if we don't ever reach back into history to understand what we're going through in this day and age, then it's going to be harder for us to learn how to deal with it. And so that was me trying to teach the history so people can understand this is why we are where we are. And this is what we need to do to fix where we are. So it's a very educational book, but it's in fiction. So I have one essay in there because I needed to like set the tone for the book to teach people, like, you know, if they didn't know, say, who David Walker was, or they didn't know how racist Thomas Jefferson was. Like, all of that stuff was important. So I do have one essay in there, but everything else pretty much are poems, short stories. I have a short story in there about a lynching. You know, I have a short story in there about a woman who is saying goodbye to her husband at her funeral, at his funeral, I mean. Just having all of these different stories interwoven in there to show people like Black love and why we have to protect it. So that's what Aphrodisiacs is about.
It sounds really awesome. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you handle criticism?
Yeah, I'm a person that believes that criticism is so important to growth. And so I definitely am open to it. I do try to push people to be as constructively critical as possible. Because some people like to just give opinions, but I just need like facts attached to those opinions. You know what I'm saying? So, but I am definitely a person who believes that we grow through criticism. I try to open myself up for criticism as much as possible. By asking for people's feedback, especially like when I'm going through my writing processes or whatever. I will definitely like have a couple poems and then kick it off to my best friend and have him read it and tell me what he thinks, or, you know, send it off to different friends of mine, male and female, who will read it and give me their feedback. And so I'm definitely open for criticism all the time. And I'm also a very collaborative person. And I understand like that if we can put our heads together to figure this out, then we'll probably get there a lot faster than one person, you know, trying to do it themselves. And so it's a lot of criticism that has to come with collaboration. And you have to be able to be open for somebody to say, you know, I don't think that's a great idea. Maybe we should do it. You know, you just got to take yourself out of it and realize that you got a bigger thing that you need to get accomplished. And if that criticism is going to help me get there, then let's do it, you know, so.
The last question I have for you today is, how do you take care of yourself and balance self-care with everything you do, especially seeing as you're the only Black person on your council that you're within? How do you take care of yourself with all of that?
Yes, I do appreciate that question. I think that I do a lot better in my older age now doing that. When I was a young lady, when I was a teacher, especially, I used to push myself to the max. You know what I'm saying? I always wanted to be there for my students. I would stay after school. I would be in all these different organizations doing all these different things and not really make time for my personal health. And then in 2017, December 2017, I moved to Denver in 2017 to take a job as a director of literacy in a school district. And was very stressed during that time. Because like you said, it can beat up on you to be a Black person that's trying to call the shots and tell people what to do. And, you know, some people are not going for that too much. So I used to push myself to the max. Long nights, work on the weekends, just doing everything that I possibly could. And I ended up having a stroke at 36 years old, which is very, very young. And I didn't have a regular stroke. I ended up having one that's called, it was basically a cerebral hemorrhage. So like I really messed myself up really bad, not getting the rest, having my blood pressure going up, all that kind of stuff. and not monitoring it, and ended up having a stroke at work. And it took me 2.5, 3 months to physically recover. And then cognitively in my brain, like it took about a year of monitoring and constant therapy for me to get to where I am today. And I am now a 2.5-year stroke survivor. And I have to take care of myself. I have realized now, especially in that traumatic experience, that this life is short. And if you do not do what you need to do to put your stamp on this world, you can be taken up out of here. And I take that so seriously. I need to be there for my kids. So, I mean, I changed my whole entire life. I got me a trainer. I have learned how to cook. I've always been vegetarian, which was part of the reason why I had a stroke, believe it or not. Because as a vegetarian, you're just eating so many carbs and all that other kind of stuff. You're eating potatoes, you're eating, you know what I'm saying, maybe cheese or something like that. You're eating these things that are just so high in carbs, and they just make your blood pressure raise. And I just didn't even know. I thought I was eating healthy because I was vegetarian. So I've had to change all of that. I had to go plant-based. I eat smoothies, green smoothies daily, exercise when I can. You know, I know I need to do that a little bit more. But I definitely prioritize my health at this point. So when I'm not feeling to it, I make sure that I rest. I don't work long hours. I cut it off at like 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just make sure that I, you know, eat my 3 meals. I make sure I have my snacks. I make sure that I get a dose of like family time with my family. We play games. We paint together. We make sure we prioritize that time every week. Just last night we played Uno. So I just really try to make time for myself, make time for the people that I love, and making sure that I'm not putting too much on myself. And, you know, I also do a lot of like spiritual meditating and spending time to myself just to reflect, just to, you know, pull some things back and to think. I spend a lot of time in nature just being able to, you know, think and trying to prioritize that. So, you know, I do what I can. You know, I don't think it's ever a personal or a perfect way that people do their self-care, but it is a priority to me. And I hope that especially in this time that everybody is prioritizing this, because this is beating us up intellectually in so many different ways that we got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? Because this life is short, this life is precious, and we just have to make sure that we can be here and preserve it as long as we humanly can. And COVID is making it very difficult for us to do that. So I get books like self-help books where I can journal, where I can put my thoughts into it, you know what I'm saying? So I can plan for my future or whatever. Like they have plenty of those on Amazon. And so I've been using some of those. I listen to wellness podcasts, mental health podcasts. So I do what I can to learn as much as I can to take care of myself.